Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Maisy Mok. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. At least 2 deaths are reported and over 100 people injured as Hong Kong is paralyzed by its worst rainfall in more than a century. Floods and gushing waters cause chaos and risks across the city. And senior officials defend the government's response to the unprecedented downpours. For the second time in a week, Hong Kongers were told to stay home after the worst rainstorm in more than a century lashed the territory overnight. 2 deaths were reported, and over 140 people were injured during the rainstorm, which destroyed roads and inundated MTR stations. Hong Kong was caught off guard as the worst downpours in recent times pounded the city. Water streamed down Eat Road in Kowloon Tong this morning, just a week after the SAR was largely spared by Super Typhoon Saola, which triggered the number 10 signal. A man trying to trek through the flooded road was swept away. The mishap was just one of many that occurred across the city as it was lashed by heavy rain. In Wong Tai Sin, the entire ground floor of Temple Mall was inundated, with the water level high enough to an adult. Floods were reported in many areas after heavy rains that shattered decades-old records. The black rainstorm warning issued late last night lasted 16 hours and 35 minutes, breaking the previous mark set in 1999 when the signal was enforced for over 5 hours. Hong Kong's highest rainfall warning was replaced by the amber signal at 3:40 p.m. Despite being urged to stay home, several people were determined to get to work. But Wong Tai Sin Station was closed. Train services between Shek Kip Mei and Choi Hong stations were suspended. Most buses did not run for most of the day. A taxi driver abandoned his cab in Wong Tai Sin and struggled to cross the road. The driving rain flooded dozens of car parks, including this one in Chai Wan. Cars and motorcycles were either partially or fully covered by water.
Maybe the 3 years I'm parked here. This is my bike parking. Now the security no call me, you come here, you take the outside the bike. That's why I'm not coming. Now in the morning I coming by the too much water. Maybe the 2 meter water here.
On Wong Chuk Hang Road, drivers were forced to abandon their cars because of the floods. A few kilometers away, officers sealed off parts of Island Road this morning after finding a car trapped in a hole. No one was injured. Yu Heng Road in Shao Kui Wan was sealed off after being blocked by rocks following a landslide. Water gushed down the slope onto the road. Livestock in the new territories were also affected. Over 1,000 pigs in this farm in Ta Kwu Ling died from the floods or were swept away. Chai Wan and the northern New Territories were the areas worst hit by floods overnight as unprecedented heavy rain lashed the city. The rainstorm warning jumped from amber to black in less than 2 hours. Chloe Fong reports.
Most people were asleep when downpours transformed the Lingxing Road in Chai Wan into a river, with water gushing towards Wan Tree Road. A vehicle drove slowly but still made a splash that was over 1 meter high. Near the same area, a woman was swept away by the rushing waters. Despite making several desperate attempts to grab the handrails, she managed to regain her balance after being carried away for nearly 100 meters. Roads in front of the New Jade shopping mall in Chai Wan were severely flooded, forcing drivers to detour or use the outer lanes. The unexpected rainfall prompted the observatory to issue the Amber Alert at 9:25 last night. Just 25 minutes later, it was upgraded to red, followed by black, the highest signal at 11:05 p.m. The Northern New Territories also bore the brunt of the heavy rain overnight, with special flood warnings issued for areas including Taikoo and Chateaucoq. In Chateaucoq, water levels reached knee-deep and services from nearby piers were halted. Firefighters were called to help in rescue work, but the weather trapped some emergency trucks and personnel, delaying their operations. At Tai Po Market Station, at least 14 minibus routes to the Northern New Territories were suspended. This minibus operator said it was impossible to get on the road, as floods could damage the vehicles. The authorities opened a dozen temporary shelters at midnight, but only announced the suspension of classes at 6 a.m. Many workers rushed for public transport this morning, although the government appealed to employers to adopt a sympathetic and flexible working arrangement. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Police and firefighters dealt with over 1,000 cases of traffic accidents and floods today. Some of them rushed to Ma Liu Shui in Sha Tin after a 32-year-old Indonesian man was reported to have been swept away by floods. The man has not been found. 2 bodies were recovered from the sea during the rainstorm. One was an 87-year-old man whose body was found outside the Causeway Bay Typhoon Shelter. A suicide note was found while rescuers were trying to retrieve the body. The other body was pulled out from the sea outside the Shen Tuk Center in Shen Wan. Hospitals treated 142 people when the black rainfall signal was in effect. 4 were admitted in serious condition. The government says there's no way to soften the blow of the rainstorm, which it claims will not occur in another 500 years. Senior officials also denied that the discharge of water from the Shenzhen Reservoir had made things worse in border districts. Raymond Yan reports.
One night after witnessing the worst floods in recent memory, top officials faced the media to answer questions on what many felt was a botched response from the government. Chief Secretary Eric Chen insisted the rainstorm was unprecedented.
It was once in a 500 years, so it's so big and so sudden, and the predictability is so low. So that's why we cannot to act as the former typhoon Sora, that we can do the announcement very early beforehand.
He added that between 11 p.m. and midnight, 158.1 millimeters of rain fell at the observatory's headquarters, the most since records began in 1884. Acting Drainage Services Director Choi Si-K added areas such as Chunwan and Tai Tam even received 600 millimeters of rain over a few hours, amounting to 1/4 of the average annual precipitation. He stressed that no drainage system could handle that amount of rain in such a short period of time. The downpours also forced neighboring Shenzhen to discharge water from its reservoir at midnight, after it was filled to the brim. But residents in border districts were caught off guard, as the SAR government only made an announcement 16 minutes before the scheduled release. Security Chief Chris Tang denied the notification came too late. Once we got word from Shenzhen about the discharge, we sent personnel to the 6 villages most prone to flooding to provide assistance, he explained. Tang added there was no evidence the discharge had made things worse in Hong Kong. Labour Minister Chris Sun, on the other hand, was grilled about the government's refusal to announce a work stoppage so everyone could stay home. I hope you understand that even under extreme weather, many people must remain on duty, such as hospital and elderly home workers, he said. He said the Labor Department has an effective code of practice for typhoons and extreme weather, and employers must ensure the safety of their workers before asking them to report to duty. Raymond Yang, HKIBC.
The chief executive has admitted that there is room for improvement on the dissemination of extreme weather alerts. John Lee was repeatedly asked why the emergency alert system, which cost $150 million to build in 2020, was not utilized. He said existing channels of communication are adequate to update the public, but pledged to conduct a review. Lee met the press in Shao Kei Wan after inspecting the landslide at the bottom of Mount Parker. He said the rockfall posed no immediate danger to residents of nearby Yutong Estate, but clearance work will begin only when conditions stabilize. Neighboring Shenzhen was also hit by floods following its heaviest rainfall in over 70 years. The city was on alert since last night, with its railway station flooded, trapping about 100 people. All schools and some subway stations and offices were shut today. Shenzhen authorities said rainfall was a record 465.5 millimeters over a 12-hour period. They added the torrential rain was brought by Super Typhoon Haikui, which made landfall in southern China on Tuesday. Haikui has weakened to a tropical depression, but its slow-moving clouds dumped a large amount of rain. Parts of Europe have also been hit by floods, which claimed at least 18 lives in Greece, Bulgaria, and Turkey. Villages in northern Greece were devastated by fast-rising waters, which submerged homes and swept away vehicles. At least 7 deaths were reported in Greece. In the central part of the country, emergency workers were kept busy rescuing stranded residents. At least 60 people were airlifted to safety after spending a day on the roofs of their homes. Just a reminder that the extreme conditions warning remains in force. Heavy showers and thunderstorms will continue tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 26 and 29 degrees. That's our main news for Friday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Maisy Mok. Good night.